all you Greensburg Newsites. I'm here with the artist of the month, Justin Trafford. Justin is a singer-songwriter who just immigrated here from the country of Pittsburgh, and we will be delving into his brain. So, are you originally from Pittsburgh?
I am, yes. My family is about 20 minutes north of Pittsburgh.
Okay. What prompted you to move to Greensburg?
Well, I went to school out here. I went to the Pitt campus, Pitt Greensburg, and when I finished up there, I moved back to Pittsburgh, and so it's been the post graduate sort of life, just trying to figure out what's next, and moving out here for work and cultural reasons. I did miss the area because while I'm not directly in the city in Pittsburgh, it's more of a suburban area, and it's a bit comparable to here, but I'm much closer to downtown Greensburg than I am as far as distance to Pittsburgh from where I'm originally from.
Okay. So, are you mainly a singer? You also play guitar, I take it?
That's right, yeah.
And how long have you been doing this?
I must have learned guitar when I was about 10 or 11. I tell people I really started being serious about music and being serious about making music I had my first professional recording session in 2002, so that's going to be about 13 years ago now. And that was a sort of local studio out in Allegheny County, closer to where I lived. But really, it's been about since then. It's been nonstop.
So, wow, you've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
Well, even before I knew how to play any instruments, anyone I think can come up with a melody, and I think that's what I was doing since elementary school. I seem to have showed an interest in music that sort of overshadowed those of my peers who were really interested in whatever was popular at the time. And then by the time high school rolls around, then everybody starts getting into music, so I felt like I was a bit ahead of the game.
Right, okay. So who were your influences at that time?
At that time?
Who are they now?
Yeah, things tend to change.
Yeah.
Well, what a lot of people seem to find interesting is that when I started playing music, obviously it's a progression and you get better. So when I began playing music, it turned out that I fell into the sort of folk kind of style of music, and I was very interested in traditional American folk music. I remember writing several papers on it in high school whenever we were given the option to have a topic of our own, and doing interviews with local folk artists and even folk artists I reached out to on the web. But I feel like if you listen to what I'm doing now, it doesn't really bear much resemblance at all to what I was doing, and it's mostly because I got bored playing simplistic music. Not that the ideas or the motives of folk music are simple, but musically it's very easy music to play, and I was interested in playing and becoming better and becoming interested in more complicated music.
So who do you pull your influences from?
Currently, I feel like I'm listening to different. I describe some of the things as folk music now, but that might not be what other people might think of them as. I've been listening to a lot of Van Dyke Parks, who's a contemporary American composer, and he draws on a lot of elements of folk music, but he's also an arranger, which means his job is much more involved than strumming straight chords on an acoustic guitar. Also, apart from that, it sort of fits in my interest in orchestral music, that I would develop an interest in Phil Spector records, because obviously a lot of what he put together was very, very large blocks of music. So I've fallen into Righteous Brothers, Ronettes, all that sort of stuff.
Okay. So you mentioned chamber music. You had something called 3 volumes of chamber pop music.
Yeah.
Describe your sound. I know you said chamber music is an influence for you, and you kind of mix it with a pop.
Well, it's difficult when you can't afford an orchestra and or quartet or what have you, and 2, aren't really social enough to make friends with all the people that make that kind of music.
Right.
So whenever I put out those releases, and I did sort of all that stuff myself, and did sort of small and short run releases of those projects prior to starting Suavity's Mouthpiece. And again, being that I couldn't afford or make friends with orchestral musicians, the chamber music influence came out in a guitar sound in which I was coming away from the folk music and starting to make the riffs more spread out and more solitary. So it's a lot of guitar music emulating violin lines. So.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like too when I listen to it. So tell me, you're also in a band, like you said, it's called Suavity's Mouthpiece.
That's right.
Tell me about Suavity's Mouthpiece.
I started that group in 2008. I was a senior in high school, and that came to the point where I was finishing up that 3rd volume of chamber music and thinking, right now I still can't afford or make friends with orchestral musicians, but I'd like to arrange music for a group performance as opposed to these violin guitar lines. So I had to sort of become more social, to meet musicians and sort of cobble things together so that I could realize writing music for a group sound. And I started that in 2008, and it all came sort of slowly, first with a bassist, and always having trouble with a drummer, as I'm sure a lot of bands do. But it all happened eventually, and I've been doing Suavity's Mouthpiece up until I moved out here, and the lineups have changed around as I moved out here for school and moved back in the summers. But the problem with doing it now is that it is a distance from Greensburg to Pittsburgh for rehearsing and things like that. So I've been doing solo shows and releasing solo recordings in that period of time.
Oh, cool. What's your writing process like? How do you get started writing a song?
Again, that's something that's progressed over time. In college, I would tell people that what I did was sort of listen on the outskirts of conversation and sort of bastardize the typical things people were saying in daily life. And again, I've found that the music was building up simultaneously and just waiting the right words to come along. But the best of the material that I write seems to come all at once, all together, and it just seems to work out naturally without too much effort. So I'm fortunate in that regards.
Let's talk about some of your songs. Tell me about Good Exercise. There's a lot going on in this song musically. It has sort of a demented jazz, pop, funk sound. there's many instruments on this. Tell me about this one. There's a lot going on in this song.
Yeah, I think people who give Suavity's Mouthpiece the taste will find that's a common trend, and it seems to come from the music that I listen to, and the music that most interests me. There's a lot going on. It's very cerebral, and different times you listen to it, you may catch different things. Good Exercise was part of the most recent Suavity's Mouthpiece album release called Peerless Suavity. It came out in 2014 on a Pittsburgh label, Purple and Pink Records. What I was expounding upon sort of followed a trend from the previous album that I wanted to continue expanding that really not chaotic but very full and very nuanced sound, very high definition, a lot going on and different textures. So for Good Exercise, it may have taken more of a jazz feel, and I like some of the twists and turns that sort of remind me of, in some way, remind me of some of the chordal changes that Phil Spector strove for, and some of the compositions that he worked with other writers on, primarily when he was writing songs. Well, the songs started with writers that he went to, like Carole King and people like that. But his place in the writing process was he came in at the hook, and he came in with a key change of some sort, and it was sort of unexpected, but it came down to really defining pop at that time. So I think it's not necessarily too overblown to look for something that's off the beaten path.
One of the lyrics in that is, all I want is jail time for the rest of my life. It's good exercise.
Right.
What's that mean? I'm assuming that's metaphorical.
Well, not necessarily.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, I spend even, well, now I still do, but maybe not as much as I did immediately following graduation, moving back to Pittsburgh. A lot of time isolated working on this music, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's been like that for 13 or 14 years that I've been doing this. It's a process that doesn't always involve many people, and that can be to the detriment of it at times whenever you're trying to work with a live band and they maybe have ideas for songs. It's not that I'm against that. In fact, the Peerless Suavity album had two co-writes with two other of the live band members. But I seem to know what I want, which is why I started the project in the first place.
So jail time being you're just sort of locking yourself up and creating.
Right, and it's something that who knows, Phil Spector may be doing right now, because he is indeed incarcerated.
Good point. Is it you speaking on the line, if there's one thing I don't like, it's when people tell me how I'm supposed to treat girls after I've had too much to drink?
I wrote that line for the guitarist. His name is Dick Whiskey. He was the most recent addition to our group. In 2013, I brought him in. And when it comes to Dick, I sort of like to exaggerate his persona, and he doesn't always like that. I'll say that he's settled down over the years that I've known him prior to being in this group. As far as just growing up, and I will say he was never a womanizer, and I was worried about this line, and it was brought up to me by several people that they were concerned about this line, particularly on the album, which was interesting to me because I hardly ever get asked about lyrics. But when I brought this line to him and I sort of explained the concept of the song, and he refused to actually perform the line. And I didn't want to cut it out, so I ended up having to do it myself. And that's how things turn out.
How does that blend into the song?
It doesn't really. It doesn't. Yeah, it's not really part of the arc of the narrative at all. But as I say,
one of your turns.
Yeah. Musically, it took a turn too because that's a major key change in the song. So perhaps that's where it fits in.
Okay. I know you like old-time crooners. On All Moonlight, I can hear the influence on there. This gives, again, several moods blended throughout. Sort of starts out as an old-time crooner tune and morphs into a moody, dreamy thing, then a creepy thing, then a sort of sweet thing, back to a creepy thing, and around again. I was thinking it's sort of a love song, and then I thought, is it? You go a lot of different directions, which makes it really interesting.
I think I might mention love somewhere towards the end of that song, but I like to tell myself that song came out having a very old feel, and that I'm very proud of it. And the guitar line may have not necessarily been something that was popular at the time of what I was going for, but it worked with the other. Well, the guitar line came first, and the other instruments sort of helped luxuriate and create more space for what essentially was something that I might have come up with prior to Suavity's Mouthpiece. The percussion in it is pretty sparse, as it was at the time when I was doing those things. So, yeah, maybe it's a love song.
He doesn't even know. You sing on this, How Many Shrinks Can I Lie To in a Matter of Months? This definitely added to the demented spurn lover thing that I got from this. It's kind of chilling.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going with?
Well, yeah, and I think part of the story narrative I sort of co-opted from Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-Las. And it's definitely towards the end, the final verse of that song sort of mirrors the final verse of Leader of the Pack in terms that the speaker is going back to high school the day after her lover dies. But I think I elucidate on it a bit more as to what that means for the person's future, psychologically and mentally speaking.
This sounded like it was a challenge to sing because of the changes in pitch too.
It was low, yeah, and it's low live as well. But it does jump around, yes.
You pull it off though pretty well. Okay, let's move on to Empty Dreamer. That's really an interesting song. It's kind of self-explanatory, or is it? To me, it kind of sounds like someone pondering the futility of it all. You sing, finally decided not to care anymore.
That was the first recording session that I did, Empty Dreamer, in 2002. And you may see that guitar line, which I feel is pretty durable and still stands about 15 years later, is something similar to what you would find in All Moonlight. So I think while I've grown and become a better musician, common threads are always something to think about whenever you're building a past in music.
The sound of this is really interesting to listen to. Like with your other songs, it starts out in one direction, swerves into another. It has a romantic sound with the guitar and violin, but then the harmonica comes out of nowhere and throws a different thing, and it made me go, new direction, and then it's blended in with some other discordant notes, and I even hear a little Depeche Mode sound added to the mix.
Yeah, the harmonica is a remainder from the folk era, and I did my best.
No, it makes it more interesting to listen because you don't expect it, and it takes it in a different direction. Like, your songs are almost like a maze. You think you're going one way, and then you go a different way. And I like that. That makes them real, because you don't know what, and you think you have them figured out, but then you listen again, and you're like, no, that's not quite it. And
yeah, I think it might take a couple people who are on the same wavelength, or just one person who has like a severe personality disorder to come up with stuff like that.
that adds to creativity, though, for sure. Tell me about Secretly Admired. This really has an old-time crooner feel to it, too, with some dark weirdness mixed in.
Yeah, it was really, well, it's the latest release, and it's technically the second solo release, because I put out the live recording of the Frank Sinatra cover, It Was a Very Good Year. I put that out towards the end of 2014, but this is the first original studio release that I've put out under my own name, as opposed to Suavity's Mouthpiece. And it really was a Righteous Brothers tribute record, essentially. And I think that point doesn't really necessarily need to be expounded on more. I think it's fairly obvious what was being drawn from, and the textures. I wasn't really aiming to replicate the Spectre sound, but I wanted to explore the feeling and explore the sensation of the kind of sounds that I like. So
This almost kind of sounds like a stalker's love song, or maybe just a sweet admiring from a distance song, and I can't decide which happens in a lot of your other songs too. Is that intentional?
well, it's what it is.
People wondering?
Well, again, maybe if more people would be like you and asked me, they would find out, because it's actually the other way around. It's a person assuring another person that they are indeed enamored with me, which, is an interesting thread. I'm telling you, this is what it is. You admire me, and everybody knows it. It's all over town.
Okay. So is this about you or a specific person, or just a circumstance in general?
I probably could go around and tell people that they're interested in me, but I generally don't, because I don't aim to make people laugh. It just happens. So I don't.
So it's someone looking at you.
No, it might not have anything to do with me, because again, while I could go out and tell people this kind of thing, it's not something that I would do, because, well, I would do it in case the person needed a laugh, but, most people don't.
Okay. So do you like playing live?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was unable to do it for a short period of time after I moved out here, for personal reasons, but I'm back at it, and I'm very glad to be doing it again.
So what's the best way for people to hear your music? Aside from catching you at a show.
That's right. Well, I still operate out of the Suavity's Mouthpiece website for reporting on things that I do. So that website is smpop.tk, and that's where all the information and all the branches out to various locations are.
Okay. What's next for you? What's your next plans for this?
Working as part of Suavity's Mouthpiece would be fantastic again. The guitarist, Dick Whiskey, has since put his own group together, and it's something that he's been working on doing since the idea of us playing together came up. but he stopped what he was doing to help me in Swabity's mouthpiece. So I'm glad that he's able to find his niche now, and his group is called Dick Whiskey and the Bottle Openers, and they're very good, and I will be performing a show with them in Greensburg in June.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.
For one divine, it was if neither Sinatra nor Presley ever died. Then sidelined into the medium. This is the slab of metal that makes it work. It is